Hey, this is Mr Eveything Pooltable coming to you live with a tutorial on how to refelt and rebumper your pool table if you want to do a DIY. Now you're going to need a heavy duty staple gun, some 3/8 staples, some razors, and you're going to need the cement glue that I'm going to show you in a minute. Now this particular table needed a lot of work. The bumpers were ruined. They were actually loose on the inside. So the first thing you want to do is get under the table and start taking the bolts out of the rails all the way around. As you can see, I started putting the bolts on the table so you can see that they came out of the rails from under the bottom. Then take your rails, turn them over on the table, get your staple puller, and start pulling staples. Some people like to use a razor at this point to kind of cut like right in front of the staples. It's a little bit quicker to use a razor to cut in front of them, but for tutorial purposes, I actually pulled every single staple just so you can see the process. As you can see, this table, the bumpers is already falling off, so it's a good time to refelt. You want to go ahead and pull the felt back, grab the piece of wood or sometimes a piece of rubber that's in between the felt and the rails. Pull that out so you can get the felt out easily. Next, you want to work on your bumpers. In this case, this bumper wasn't that tightly fitted on there, so it came off easily, much like the other ones on this table did. But sometimes you have to fight to get those off. It just depends on the situation and how long it's been on there. You want to use your staple puller to kind of pry it off and pry it from the rubber that's on the side. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and get you a marker and line up your new bumpers with the pocket so you can get the same angle right before you cut it. Now at this point, you want to go ahead and grab your well-wood glue. You can find this at Home Depot. Sometimes they make you use a ID just to purchase it. I don't know why they do that, but they do. Go ahead and use that glue, smear it on the rails, and sometimes you may have to sand the rails prior to just to make sure it sticks better, to get a better connection between the glue and the rubber. But a lot of the times you can just go ahead and apply the glue directly to the rails and it'll be just fine. Next, you want to go ahead and grab the bumpers that you cut the angles on. Go ahead and stick them to the rails. You might have to hold them there for a little while. Wait till the glue gets real sticky and real tacky so the bumpers don't just slide off. And if they're sliding off while you're doing it, just set them to the side somewhere and give them some time to dry. In the meantime, you're just moving on to the next rail, repeating the same process all the way around. Now, as you're waiting on your bumpers to dry, you want to get your cloth and lay it across the table so you can see exactly how much space you have to cut. Now, Simonis in this case is what I was using. That's a pretty good brand. Now, sometimes they give you the rails pre-cut and sometimes they don't. And in this case, they wasn't pre-cut. So you see the extra slack hanging off the side? That's where I got to get my bumpers from. Now, this is where you break out your tape measure. You want to measure them about 4 inches extra on both sides on the length and about 6 inches wide. That way you don't come up short. And you want to make your cuts about 6 inches wide. That way you'll leave yourself enough for the slate. You don't want to cut too wide of a bumper and then you don't have enough cloth to cover your slate. That's the worst case scenario you would ever have to face. Then you want to go ahead and put your felt back in the groove and put the wood in the groove to wedge it in there. Sometimes you got to force it down, but it'll go down if you add a little pressure. You might want to use a razor to cut the little threads that's hanging off the side. That way they don't show up on the other side of your cloth. Now, go ahead and use your staple gun. Start stapling all the way down. Put pressure and pull on the cloth at the same time as stapling. That way there's no slack on the other side. You should have a tight finish on the surface. If not, and there's a few bubbles, just flip it back over, pull the staples, and restaple it again. Now you can take a step back and look at the whole slate. Make sure you got enough felt to cover the whole slate. It was very important to not cut too much for the rails, because when you get to this point, you need everything you got. Once you've done the slate and you cut your pockets, folded them under, and then glued the pockets up under or stapled the pockets up under, depending on what kind of table you got, you're good to go. And that's a tutorial on